So I was going to say this for a Versus Chris episode because some of you guys liked that series, some of you guys didn't. I couldn't really tell because it did really well with the first episode. Second episode didn't do so hot, so I got a little scared. So I was like, I don't know, maybe I should back off and do something else. I don't know. But I'll just talk about it right now while I'm in the moment and just, see how you guys feel about it. So recently I found out that all the episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho are on YouTube. Except for 2. I hunted those 2 down pretty quickly by a quick Google search. But you can pretty much watch the entire series of Yu Yu Hakusho. Now, if you don't know Yu Yu Hakusho, it came on Adult Swim. It was one of the first shows that debuted when Adult Swim came out. And it's like Dragon Ball Z to a degree, but it's a little bit like Bleach as well. It's about a spirit detective. The kid dies, and then has to go on these adventures to, save people's souls and fight demons, etc., etc. And after a while, the show just becomes about fighting. A lot like Dragon Ball Z becomes, after it was done being Dragon Ball, which I'm okay with. So I thoroughly enjoy Dragon Ball Z. It's one of my favorite shows, but it's not the best. It's not the best anime in the world. And I don't want to harp on it too much about that because that's not the full type of this video. Because I think that the show that came before it, Dragon Ball, was a lot better. And I'll do a video about that sometime later. But for right now, after watching every episode of Yu Yu Hakusho, I am of the opinion that it is a better show than Dragon Ball Z. Now, Yu Yu Hakusho had a lot in common with Dragon Ball Z in the fact that it became a big fighting series where, the characters went from very meager beginnings and, started getting powered up, started getting, bigger and more muscular and more powerful as the show went on. Now, I didn't get to the ridiculous amounts of muscle like Dragon Ball because if you watch Dragon Ball Z, it's crazy because at first, Goku has about my build. He was pretty normal. He was muscular, but he wasn't huge. By the end of Dragon Ball Z, he's like a bulking mass. So is everyone else. That's just what happens. In Yu Yu Hakusho, however, the characters got more muscular when they went into their powered up modes, if you would call them that, or they got just enhancements, and then those enhancements went away when they went back to normal. And I feel like that's a very more relatable way to tell the story. In addition to that, Yu Yu Hakusho had a much better story arc with all of its characters. Yeah, there were side characters, but in Dragon Ball Z, once the Saiyan showed up, everyone else got pushed to the side. Tien Shinhan, big deal in Dragon Ball Z, no one cares. No one cares about Tien. Yamcha becomes a laughing stock. Krillin's not important at all. He just shows up a couple times to get killed. He was the motivation to make Goku stronger, which okay, that's a thing. But it just sucks to see really good characters get pushed aside when new ones show up. And Yu Yu Hakusho, as that happened, they didn't do that. They still let the other characters develop their own arcs and still be their own people. And while they were not the strongest things on the block, that didn't make them less important. It's just phenomenal to me the way that Yu Yu Hakusho handled a huge cast like that, and no one really felt like an afterthought. Everyone felt like they were important for their time on the series. And Dragon Ball Z just didn't do that. Dragon Ball Z had entire episodes dedicated to grunting, And I get it, they had to do filler, I understand that. But even the things that weren't filler, they still had episodes where all it was exposition, all it was them talking a lot about the things they were going to do instead of actually doing them. Yu Yu Hakusho, they were taking action and they were freaking going at it. And this is true for almost any show with a mystical theme on it. When someone dies, you're supposed to care. When Goku died the 15th time, it's okay, I get it, he's going to come back. Or there's going to be some weird special case where they allow him to come back to life for no reason at all. It's just ridiculous. In Yu Yu Hakusho, main characters did die more than once, but you still felt it because they didn't overdo it. You were still very encroaching. They didn't just let it hang too long either. They were okay, this person's not really dead. He was just playing a trick, ha ha ha. And I don't want to spoil the series for you. To go back a little bit, this backpedal, I did not even get a chance to finish watching Yu Yu Hakusho when it aired on TV because Adult Swim cut it short. And then later they released the episodes on DVD, and I just didn't know about it. And I was one day I'm just hanging out in my room, and I'm yeah, you know what I should do? I should go find out what happened at the end of Yu Yu Hakusho, because I've always wondered. It's been in the back of my head. So I went to YouTube, searched it out, and I was yo, these are here! This is crazy! So, I watched all of them. So, I feel like I'm very versed in this at the moment. Also, I spent the last month before that watching all the episodes of Dragon Ball Z and Dragon Ball Kai that I didn't catch when it aired around the first time. Now, I did watch all of Dragon Ball Z when it aired, but I mean, like, Kai gave a more abbreviated version of it. So, if I'm going to compare the shows, I'm going to compare Dragon Ball Z Kai to Yu Yu Hakusho, because you get rid of a lot of the fluff that they didn't really follow in the manga. Because one thing that Yu Yu Hakusho did do, they followed very closely to the manga, and there were no fillers. So that's why the show's a lot shorter. And I think that does for a better series. All my favorite series have a story that starts and a story that ends. Not this ongoing stuff they just keep throwing stuff in, like freaking Naruto and freaking One Piece. I love both those series, but it just gets like daunting after a while, because you're kind of like, okay, where's this gonna go? It's just gonna keep going and going and going and going and going, and that's okay. That's okay, but it makes for a weaker story the longer and longer to keep the series around, no matter how beloved it is. So, Yu Yu Hakusho got to a point where it got ridiculous, like Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, okay, man, this is crazy. Okay, I didn't even see that coming, and yet, it was still kind of believable. It was like, okay, I can kind of see that. Like, it kind of works, you know? Like, especially the tournaments. Now, Dragon Ball Z has its share of tournaments, like Dragon Ball did. And the two tournaments, comparatively, are like night and day. So it's really hard to compare these guys, but I'm going to try anyway. So, the tournaments in Dragon Ball is kind of like, okay, you know what? You know that everyone that is in the Z Fighter clan is going to win. It got to the point where the freaking humans on the show, like, okay, Tien's not really a human, but let's just call him for intensive purposes, Tien or Yamcha, didn't even like try to enter the tournaments anymore. They're like, you know what, no point, all the Saiyans are going to win anyway. And that's kind of the attitude that like the show took. It's like, who cares, all the Saiyans are going to win, and that's all it is, blah, 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 you know? And it was just crazy to me that is what determined things, that if you're a Saiyan, you're probably going to do it. That is just suckitude to me. It doesn't give any kind of like, what do you call it? Any kind of like suspense. Yeah, it gives no suspense. Like, you don't actually hold onto like the edge of your like table waiting to see who's going to win this tournament, because you already know. Like, you already know who's going to win. There's absolutely no question about it. Like Yu Yu Hakusho, you never really knew. There's always a bigger threat. There's always someone stronger. There's always a chance that your protagonist was going to be the weaker person. And that was an excellent and freaking genius thing to do. Because no matter how strong Yusuke got, there was no guarantee he was going to win. And that just kept you at the edge of your seat the entire time. Also, the fact that they didn't have a like ring out rule. Because that was like the lamest thing ever. Like, you throw out the ring, you lose. That's stupid. Like, if you're showing off your martial arts, that should have nothing to do with it. And that's another thing. That's another big thing here. So, Yu Yu Hakusho did a really good job of actually using martial arts and technique, and not just power-ups and screaming and win and all that stuff like that. Dragon Ball Z, by the end of it, there was no longer any more martial arts being used whatsoever. It was all just yellow hair, fusion, that's all it was. And it wasn't important what technique you knew, wasn't important like what skills you picked up in your lifetime. It was just all about the power-ups. And that is very, very sad to me. And again, made for very boring tournaments. Now, I don't want to spoil Yu Yu Hakusho for anyone, but I will slightly spoil, if you haven't watched it now, come on, Dragon Ball Z. Now, Dragon Ball Z basically ends with Goku going off with Oob to train. He leaves his wife and his family to go train with the boy. It pissed me off in no regard. And I'll have to make a video about this later too, because I love Goku, but I don't like Goku. Goku pisses me off all the time. Like, every time I watch that show, I'm like, Goku, or Kakarot, if you will. I totally understand why Vegeta has the distaste for the character that he does, because he's infuriating at the decisions he makes. He just is. Anyway, Yu Yu Hakusho's ending was not very good. It seemed very abrupt. But it was more emotional, and I felt it. And I was like, yo, that's real. Oh, you're making good decisions, man. Oh, yeah. Like, you just had the feels at the end of that show, you know? Like, you wanted to tear up a little bit. Like, in a good way. And Dragon Ball Z was just kind of like, oh, there goes the dumb A again. Whatever, bye. Just whatever, you know? And that should not be your reaction at the end of a show that you love. You should not end a show that you love with that kind of reaction. You should be like, I'm sad to see it go, or, oh, that gave me some kind of emotional response. No, it doesn't. It just, blah. I don't know. Like, I love the series, and I always will. I'm going to go watch the freaking Lord Bill's movie. You know what I'm talking about, the Battle of the Gods. I'm going to watch that. I'm going to watch it in theaters. I'm going to do a review for it because you guys asked me for it. But I'm going to do that, okay? But it doesn't mean that it's the best anime ever, and I think Yu Yu Hakusho outdoes it in almost every regard. Like, one thing I'll say is that in Dragon Ball Z, when there isn't fighting, you tend to get bored. In Yu Yu Hakusho, when they're not fighting, it's actually still very intriguing of a series. You're still kind of like, what are they gonna do now? That's interesting. Like I kind of wanted them to go back to school. I wanted Yusuke and Kuwabara to go back to school for a little bit. Like, it actually really pulled me in because I wanted to see what their daily lives were like after they had to go through all this stuff. In Dragon Ball, you didn't care about that. You was ready for the next fight. You're like, all right, come on, next thing. You know? And that means you didn't really care about the characters. You just cared about how strong they were. And that's messed up, man. It's messed up. But to the end of this video, I will say that, again, Yu Yu Hakusho is the better series, and I just told you why. But if you don't agree with me, or if you do agree with me, let's talk about it down below. Let's have an old-fashioned anime discussion. Which series do you think is better, Dragon Ball Z or Yu Yu Hakusho? Or what show do you think is better than Dragon Ball Z? Because I think I'm going to do a series where I just talk about things that are better than Dragon Ball. I'll just talking gibberish the entire time. Or I will tell you which shows I think are better than Dragon Ball Z and why. Because I think it'd just be fun to do. So anyway, yeah, let's talk about it down below. Abra use teleport. Hey guys, do me a favor and watch my last two videos. They're both doing really well and I'm really excited. Also, don't forget to watch Pokemon Confessions. The next episode will be out this Friday. There will be a new episode of Pokemon Confessions every single Friday as long as you guys support them. So, thanks.